Hello everyone, welcome to the Chef's Share edition, where today we're going to be going over sous vide cooking and using the Cryovac machine and the thermal immersion circulators. So we're going to start up. We have our Cryovac machine here, and so this is more of an industrial food saver product like you may see in like Costco or Sam's Club, but this is what we use more in a professional kitchen and cooking environment. So first up, we do have different styles of bags here. So these are just two different sizes depending on what product that you're looking to cook. And these are high density bags. So these are made for the product to be sealed inside of them, but also to be cooked in a water bath, which we're going to get to very shortly. And the way this machine works is we're going to put our product inside of this bag and we'll set it on here. And this has a double sealing edge on it. And it will suck out all of the oxygen from the product and form a very tight grip around whatever item that we're using. This is very beneficial for a lot of meat products, poultry products. So you have steak, short ribs, chicken, duck, those items, and also for root vegetables as well. So if you're doing anything involving carrots, potatoes, celery root, those items also have a high benefit for doing this kind of cooking method and this kind of storage method as well for that. So first up, just to go with our machine to get everything ready to go, we're going to be using a smaller bag, so the bag that looks this size, because we're just going to do a steak. And so it's one of the two items that we're going to do today. So we have our two steaks here. And so one of them I'm going to cook in a circulator water bath and then sear in a pan, and the other I'm going to do in a traditional style and just sear it in a pan all the way. So we have our two steaks here. The first thing that we're going to do is we want to season our product just to start out with. And just to do some review from other videos that Chef Rosser and myself have done, you always want to season high. So you want to get the product, the salt, so it falls like rain. And you do want to use kosher salt for this kind of item. You don't want to use iodized salt. That's more for like baking or something along those lines. Meats need large salt crystals, so kosher salt is very good for that. It allows the salt to penetrate farther into the protein itself. You get a more even seasoning and a more even finished product. So we're going to season from going all the way around on all sides. And make sure we get an even coating with our salt and our pepper going around it. So we have that set up there. And we are going to get our steak into our bag. Thank you. So we have our bag set up here. And you want to make sure you are using gloves when you're handling any product going in here for a safety and sanitation aspect. And you want to make sure that the product is cold when it goes in. So the steak we have just taken out of the refrigerator. So we get it on here. We get our bag. We get our item. We have it laying flat. Make sure you have your bag lays flat against your seal going along the lines. And then we're just going to close the lid. And then this machine will do the work after that. So we have a very tight seal around our steak product when it comes out. Thank you. Okay, so it starts out, the first thing it's doing is vacuuming, and it's going to start to inflate the bag with all the oxygen. It's going to blow up all that product into it, and then it's going to take it and just suck all of it out while sealing to get a tight form around our steak in this process. So it comes out like that. And it comes out like that. So you see it had the double seal going across the top, and you have the bag is sealed all the way around the steak, forming a tight packet. And this is what we're going to use to cook our steak in going forward when we get over to the immersion circulators. So we have that first part of it. And the second is we're going to be doing these potatoes here. So we have our potatoes that we're going to get into this bag. So again, the root vegetables also benefit from this style of cooking. So we have a nice, beautiful tournée cut that we have going on here. And again, we're going to season our product in our bag in order to get these items set up for the cooking process. It's going to do the exact same thing again, where it's just going to lay it flat in here, Make sure our bag, we don't have any creases, so it forms a tight seal. And then we'll just shut the lid on the machine and allow it to seal the bag around the tourneed potatoes. And so we have our potatoes sealed in the bag like that. So both these items are ready to go into our thermal immersion circulator water baths for the cooking process. So we have our steak, our beef strip loin cryovac. We also have our tourneed potatoes cryovac. And so we're ready to start the sous vide cooking process for these. So we have these going right here. And you do have a few benefits with cryovacing your product too besides cooking. It is very helpful for storage. If you're going to have to freeze this kind of product too, you will have a lot less freezer burn. You can also have your potatoes already peeled and cryovac'd, and you will avoid any discoloration that you have. For storage, it makes it so that you won't have any excess any of the meat blood dripping all over your cooler or your home refrigerator for just for safety purposes with that. But now we're going to set these up and we're going to cook these in our thermal immersion circulators that are set up right here in these two water baths. And we have two different temperatures set up with these two water baths. One is set up at just above 185 degrees Fahrenheit, and the other is set up at 125 degrees Fahrenheit. And the reason why we have the two different temperatures is product and the proteins in them are going to break down and cook at different temperatures and different times. So any root vegetable or any vegetable product has to be cooked above 185 degrees Fahrenheit. And just to gauge that too, if you were boiling water at home and cooking your product in that would be 212. So this is lower than that. And how this originally started out is this was based on chemistry equipment. And what it does is they're called circulators because it moves the water in a circular pattern around in here while regulating one constant temperature. So it's a very precise machine. I believe actually the airlines used to use this for their food in the 70s, back when they used to serve food on airplanes. And in about the late 90s was when a company saw the application for high-end restaurants to use this kind of equipment in their food scale production. So we have this set up here where the 185, that's going to be for our potatoes. The time that it's going to take to cook these will vary depending on the size, the cuts. So for a tourneed potato, this will take about 30 to 35 minutes depending on how big that is. But you need to have a tight seal around your product. If it's loose, if you had any air going in throughout this, your bag will inflate and the product will float and it's not going to cook evenly at all. So you do want to make sure that you had your tight seal. And then all you do is take it and just drop it into the emulsion circulator water bath. And at this point too, with our potatoes, the water at this temperature is going to be circulating around it. And it's going to produce a very consistent and very even cooking process at a lower temperature than we would normally cook. So like I was saying, if you're boiling water, that's 212 degrees. So even if you're simmering, you're hotter than that, but it's harder to regulate that temperature when you're using a gas stove. Whereas with this, we know that's going to stay at exactly that range. So for the next part over here, we have our steak, and we're going to do that at 125 degrees Fahrenheit. So we can do that in a temperature that is outside of what we refer to as the danger zone in culinary arts. So when the danger zone refers to a temperature range between 141 and 41 degrees to 135 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's where any bacteria is going to multiply at a very rapid level. So in that too, you can only keep food with it for 4 hours in that range before it's deemed to be unsafe. We're cooking it at a temperature range that falls within that, but we're only going to do it for about 15 minutes. So we're just taking the steak and we're just going to drop it here in this water bath. And what we're trying to do is bring it up to a very low rare. So we have it at 125 degrees and we just want to have the steak cook up to about 100 to 105 degrees or so. And essentially what we're going to be doing is kind of a reverse cooking process than we're used to. So normally you would start out, you would have your raw steak, you would put it in your pan, you would sear it finish cooking it in an oven or on the stovetop. In this case, we're going to cook the steak to a lower internal temperature, take it out of this bag, and then just finish it in the pan. So we are doing a little bit backwards. But we're going to show you both different cooking methods so you can visually see the finished product. So we have our other steak that we have here that we're going to sear in the pan. And then we have our one steak here that we're going to be cooking in the water bath and then finishing in the pan. And then we'll cut them open both, and you can see the difference on what the internal temperature looks like. So for the first part though, we just have to wait our time here. So our potatoes are going to go for about 35 minutes in here until they're done. And our steak's going to go for about 15 minutes until we take it out of the circulator water bath. And so our potatoes have now finished cooking and they went for about 30 minutes total. So we have them here, we'll just take them out of the bag. So again, these cooked at 185 degrees Fahrenheit for about 30 minutes. And we're just going to take them out of the bag here. So we're just going to cut this open. You do want to be a little bit careful because there will be some excess liquid that comes out. And we're just going to see what they look like on the plate. And you can see that they do have a fairly nice shine to them, but they're also not shredding and falling apart. So if you normally boil potatoes, they will start to fall apart. They will start to lose their shape and their texture. If you can grab that for me, please. Thank you. So we have our potatoes set up here for our tournée. And just to see what one looks like going into the center, it should be fairly even all the way through. And that's one of the benefits of cooking from this kind of methodology. So if we just cut into it, it cuts very evenly all the way through. And we have a very uniform texture with our finished product. So we have a very uniform texture with our finished product. You can see that it isn't like uneven at all. And so these are already almost all the way cooked and they're ready just to go into the saute pan. So from here, we're going to take these and we're going to saute them. We're just going to finish them with some butter and some salt and pepper in the pan to get a nice browning on the outside. We're going to do what's referred to as a palm rissoles dish. Rissoles just mean rolled. So we're going to get the butter hot and we're going to have our nice beautiful sous vide potatoes here and we're going to roll them in the butter to get an even browning throughout it. Okay, so now we're going to cook our tournée potatoes. We've already sous vide these right here. So we also have one of our practicum students, Jessica Luna Serrano, and she's going to be doing the sauteing for us here. So she has some butter in her cast iron pan that she's getting hot. So you do want to get your pan hot and then your fat that you're using, whether it be oil or butter, really hot as well. So she's getting that done there. And then she's going to add her potatoes in there. And then she's going to be doing the rissoles part, which is French for rolled. Okay, so Jessica has the butter melted in the pan and we're ready to do our palm rissoles, rissoles being rolled. So our potatoes are already cooked. So all we're doing right now is we're tossing them around and getting a nice browning on the outside of our potatoes. So they're already seasoned when we sous vide them, so that they already have their base flavor and they're ready to go. So we're really just trying to finish them out right now. Add some nice even browning around our product, just to make some nice, beautiful, and delicious potatoes at the end. So she has it started out and she's starting to get her browning on our product. In the meantime, right after this is we're going to go into doing our two steaks. So we have our one steak from raw that we'll do traditional, and then we have the steak that we sous vide as well. So the butter's starting to smoke in the pan, which is really nice. And at this point, you can sort of take it and you can just sort of like roll them around like this in it, which will get like sort of your even browning throughout it. So we're just starting to get our finished product, and we will finish it with a little bit of parsley, but just at the very end. That you don't want to add too early. If you add it too early, your fresh herbs will end up burning, and it'll look like you'll have like specks of just like charredness on them. So you want to basically, when you finish cooking, toss them in it at the very, very end. So we're starting to get our nice, beautiful, even browning on our potatoes, and we're getting close to having those things finished out there. So again, these cooked in our water bath at 185 for 30 minutes, and that just gave us our even texture. And as you can see too, even in the pan, they're not getting the nice flakiness in that anymore. We got to finish it with a little bit of parsley in the pan real quick. So this thing, and then we just toss them around in there. Okay, so right now we're going to cook our two different beef strip loins. We have our one that is our raw one that we'll do traditional style. And then we have one which is the sous vide meat product. And you can see here right from the very beginning that they do look different. So this is our one that was cooked for 15 minutes in the circulator, the thermal immersion circulator at 125 degrees. And this one has had no cooking already. So we're gonna do both of these in the pan, and then we'll see what our finished result looks like for both. So we have our cast iron pan, we're adding some oil to it just to get that hot so we can start getting a nice sear through that. And we'll start by adding our 2 steaks to it. So the first one going in. And one, if you're gonna be sauteing a product, that's best, one, get your pan hot first. After you get your pan hot first, then you add your oil. Start to get to just to this smoking point. And when you add your meat product, you wanna tilt the pan just slightly away from you so that if you set it in there, the oil splashes in the other direction. So just set it like that. And we have it set in right in here. And we'll do the same thing with our other steaks. We'll set that right in there. And so right now we're just looking to get a nice, even browning sear on all sides of our steak. So we have our pan nice and hot, and then we'll add our butter and we'll start to baste our product up the rest of the way. So we'll start out with this. And then we're gonna add some of our butter. And when you're basting a product, what you're doing is you're using a spoon and you're gonna be spooning the hot butter over top of the product. And what this does is we have our base of our pan, which is hot, and we have the butter, which is hot, going over the top part of it. So you're kind of cooking it from both sides, but then you have the butter itself, which is also adding flavor to it, also adding some moisture and some fat to it as well. So we're hitting up both of these just for the even amount of size, just to see the difference between the final product for both of them. We'll take them, we'll check it. We'll flip these over. We have a nice even brown on the one side and on the other. And we'll start basting from the other side as well. So, okay, so first up, we're going to take out our steak. This is the one that we sous vide. We're going to take this out, and we're just going to let it rest on the plate. So when you let a product rest, what you're doing is you want to let it rest for about 1/3 of the cooking time. And what happens is all the moisture has been pushed to the inside of your protein and from the heat source. The heat is coming from the bottom, and it's pushing all the moisture towards the center. And when you're resting it, you're allowing all of that to relax out. So you get a more even temperature and texture all the way through. If you've ever cut into a steak, and when you're at a steakhouse or at home and the blood runs all over the plate, that's something that wasn't well rested because you cut into it and that moisture pocket where like that blood is in the center of it. You hit it and all of it spills out all over the entire plate. So we have this other one here that was raw. We're gonna cook this a little longer. Flip it over, we'll give it a few more times. And we'll get this set up on our plate here to rest as well. So we're gonna give these just a few seconds to rest, and then we're gonna cut into them so we can see what our finished product looks like. Okay, so we have both of our strip loin steaks here. We've already seared them in the pan, and we've already let them rest. We're about to cut into them to see the difference in our time and our temperature and with our 2 cooking methods. So we'll cut into our first one here. And we have our nice even cooking throughout it there. And we'll cut into our second one here. As you can see the difference between the two of these, this is our sous vide steak here. It has a very even texture and has a very even color going throughout it. And that's due to the sous vide process that we started with. And it gave it a much more even temperature throughout it. The one that we did in the pan here, this does have different temperature variations when looking at it where it moves throughout it, just because we did the whole thing from straight from raw in the pan. So we are looking at the two of these. If you do the sous vide process first when you go to do your steaks, it does give you a much more even texture all the way through your finished product at the end. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Chef Share, where we covered some of the basic fundamentals with sous vide cooking, doing the sous vide potatoes and also the sous vide beef strip loin. Again, my name is Chef Nickerson. I'm one of the co-coordinators and faculty members in the Culinary Arts Department here at El Paso Community College. And we had one of our students helping us out, Miss Jessica Luna-Serrano as well. And if you're interested in learning more about the program, you can contact either myself at 915-831-1304 or Chef Jesus Lugo at 915-831-1302. And you're welcome to come down and visit us at the Dine and Dash Cafe, which is currently open Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Or we will resume our restaurant service in the 1309 restaurant the second week in June, with lunch services on Tuesday and Thursday and dinner services on Thursday evening. Thank you again for tuning in.